What's going on, everyone? So Austin Reaves had quite the breakout stretch towards the back half of the season last year, as well as the playoffs. And in the playoffs, he really picked it up. He went from basically 13 3-3 to 16 and a half, almost 17 a game, 4-4, and really just shined. He was the Swiss Army knife for the Lakers. He was their closer. He was just a really solid all-around player, getting after it on both sides of the ball. And now he's on Team USA, and at least in the first game, he looked really good. In the practices and scrimmage footage, he looked really good, getting after it on the defensive end, making plays for others, playing point guard. The dude, again, is just this like Swiss Army knife type player. And I fully expect him to be massive for the Lakers this upcoming season. This season, I really think he's going to be more of a focal point. I think that the Lakers kind of lean on him more because of his age, as well as his lack of mileage compared to, it's only going to be year 3, right? So he's not going to have the mileage as somebody like a LeBron James. I could also see like LeBron James kind of taking a bit of a step back, still going to go get his, 20 plus a game, but I could see him not dominating the basketball and kind of playing off more and letting Reaves kind of shine, as we saw in the back half of last season, as well as in the playoffs. LeBron James kind of deferring to Austin Reaves. And Austin Reaves, of course, there is the concerns of, was it just a moment, right? We've seen plenty of players have great playoff series, great seasons, and just kind of hit this wall and are never able to kind of get past that, or they kind of regress. I don't necessarily think that that'll be an issue with Austin Reaves just because of how efficient he is and how effective he can be and how he can impact the game beyond just the box scores and his scoring output. And I also think it's going to come into touches and just, the type of sets you get him, the looks you get him, things of that matter, right? But he's now going to be a focal point for opposing teams' defense, right? Teams are going to now have him on the whiteboard and game plan for him and have him on the scouting report. And I'm going to circle his name as a guy that you need to slow down when facing the Lakers. He still, though, is going to be the third or fourth option. So how much are they going to really game plan for him? Especially when some teams, like as we got later on, teams were trying to press him more. But I don't think he was still this huge focal point for defenses. And there wasn't the tape that there is now. All of those factors, right? Paul George has a podcast where he talked about this very thing, right? Like you see a lot of players, they have that moment. He even had it himself. We have this breakout. Teams aren't really scouting for you. And then all of a sudden they realize like, okay, we really got to kind of focus in on him, and everything changes and it becomes a lot more difficult, a lot harder. And that's the difference between good players and great players, right? It's what usually you see guys start fizzling out. Like, when teams start putting their best defensive guy on Austin Reaves to kind of try to slow down the Lakers' engine. That could be a real thing. But now you see Austin Reaves, he's on these like press tours, Team USA. He's just kind of been the main talk, the main focus point on Team USA. And he's even after their win, he was the one that got interviewed. He was the one that got the main screen time, right? He was the one that really got the shine. And look, he was great. Fantastic defensively. Was a leading scorer at halftime. Gave you 9 forward 4. And shot efficiently. Again, 50% from the field. He was very good. Very good. But is he starting to get sort of overrated and overhyped? Right? I've seen this conversation. I've seen this question just kind of thrown around a lot. And seen lots of people kind of on both sides of the fences. Right? Now, from a media standpoint, sure, I could see that, right? Because he had a great breakout moment. It wasn't even a full season, right? It was the back half of the season when LeBron got hurt and then the playoffs. And there is this kind of thought of let's see if he can continue that. That I fully understand, that I fully expect. And the media just really kind of shining a light on Austin Reaves. Now, part of that is the Laker effect, right? He's on the Lakers. And if we're being honest, he wouldn't be getting this kind of shine if it wasn't for him being on the Lakers, right? If he was on Detroit and he had the season he had last year, even if he did that the full season, it was on Team USA, Do you really think he'd be getting interviews over like Jalen Brunson and Anthony Edwards? And probably not, right? Because it wasn't like he was their leading scorer or he like hit a clutch shot or anything like that. No, he was a guy off the bench who had 9 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, didn't make a single basket in the second half. Although it wasn't really needed, and he also didn't take a bunch of shots, but still, like, it wasn't like he had this like monster game. But it's Austin Reaves. There's a lot of hype, right? He's on the Lakers, and thus you get that attention, you get that media attention. I mean, even guys like Gabe Vincent right now just came off of like a press tour because he's on the Lakers. He wasn't doing that in Miami. So from a media standpoint, sure, but we also can't pretend that like he didn't have a ridiculous season, right? We can't pretend like he wasn't, like he was just this okay player that got lucky, right? Or he was just this guy that, had a nice little standout moment. No, he had a great season. He led the league in true shooting and was ranked number one on amongst all players that were not centers. And the reason that that's important is because, a lot of centers, all their baskets are like at the rim. So a lot of them have like a true shooting of like 70% or better. No, Austin Reaves had a true shooting of 68.7. That was better than Steph. That was better than everybody else in the league besides a handful of centers. He was ridiculous in that regard. Now, I also think the overrated, underrated term kind of gets thrown around a lot, right? Like a player can deserve and get recognition and can get credit and can get hyped without having to be a superstar, and that doesn't make them overrated, right? Just like, you see people like, oh, he's underrated, right? And it's like, he's the seventh guy on the roster who averages 4 points per game, right? In 17 minutes of play. Like, he's not underrated. He's good. He impacts the game, sure, but he's not, you hear, oh, that guy's just super underrated. I do think people throw out the overrated, underrated a lot, but I don't think Austin Reaves is overrated yet. Now, if he, let's say he is a 13-3-3 guy next year, and people are praising him like he's this all-star, and he's getting all this hype, and he's getting all this stuff, then sure, he's probably being overrated. But right now, people are rating him based on his performance that he had in the regular season and the playoffs. And he absolutely deserves that because he was great. So, again, in the playoffs, he went from 13 points per game to 16.9. He went from 3.4 assists per game up to 4.6. His true shooting did drop, but it went from 68.7 to 61.6, which is still the best in the league amongst non-shooters. And this was him as the third option. He wasn't the number one option, wasn't the guy. Now, could you argue that he didn't get the volume of like a Steph Curry and stuff like that? Sure. Yes. So you have to adjust for that. Even if you adjust for the volume per, he would still be top 3 in the league. Assuming that, he shoots at the percentage that he shot. And if he makes if there's a one shot variance, he could still be number 1 in the league if you adjust for the per. And then in the Denver series, he averaged 21 points per game, 5.3 assists per game, had splits of 55, 56, and 100. And he's getting hype and praise, and people don't think he deserves it? It just makes no sense to me. Again, if he becomes more of a focal point for the Lakers and he regresses and he's still getting this praise like he's this, great white hope, hillbilly Kobe, he's this and he's that, then sure, I can understand that and no problem. But even if he's just like a 17-4-4 guy or 17-5-5 guy all year, and he's getting praise and love and whatnot, and he's the third or fourth option, then he's not overrated. If anything, he's being underrated, right? And if he's a borderline all-star and he's getting hype, how can you say he's overrated? I understand and I get wanting to kind of see. Like, it's something I preach all the time. Like, let's wait and see. That was my motto all season last season. And I got so much hate. Like, oh, how can you be this? How can you say that? Blah, blah, blah. But I ended up being right about all of it because I was willing to be patient. I was willing to wait. I was willing to let things unfold. And I am willing to do that with Austin Reaves. But we can't pretend like he didn't just do what he did, right? Of course, do I want to see him continue that? Yes. But he is getting the recognition based on the performance that he just delivered. We don't know what he's going to do next year. He could end up being a 25-5-5 guy next year, right? And be a top 3 guard in the league, make the all-star team, make all NBA. He could very well end up having like a ridiculous season. But he could also end up being a guy that underperforms and ends up coming off the bench, right? Who knows? I don't know. But we can't judge somebody or base expectations based on what they might do tomorrow because we don't know. We can only judge somebody by what they've done now. What was the last thing he did? The last thing he did was shoot, 56% from the field and put up 21 a game and be looking like a legit all-star level player out there. And he looks like he's improved based on what we've seen with Team USA. And you'd imagine that he should. It's going to be year 3, right? And he's getting all of this run and extra minutes and reps and playing with guys that are just as good, if not better than him, right? Like, I think he's being rated exactly where he should be right now. I don't think he's overrated. I don't think he's underrated. Time will tell where he falls. Are some guys overrated? Yes. Are some guys underrated? Yes. It happens. I don't think Austin Reaves is that. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think Austin Reaves is rightly rated? Do you think he's overrated, underrated, somewhere in between? Love to hear it. Let me know.